Koreen, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
So I've seen you. You've been kind of managing one of the stages here at DevLearn. How's that been going?
It's good. I was excited actually so every year before DevLearn I usually call Brent Schlenker with a crazy idea. And I usually start the call sometime over the summer and I'll say, Brent, I have a crazy idea.
You can't see him roll his eyes over the phone. That's the...
No, he knows the call is coming, invariably, because I've done it every year.
Nice.
And this year I was talking to him about how I felt as a learning community that DevLearn is probably the premier conference to showcase new learning technologies and applications of them. And we spend an awful lot of time, and I've spent an awful lot of time talking to people about new things, about what's coming next, what's out. And I told him that I was feeling some tension personally, that some of the new things we've been talking about for the last few years, I would like to start showcasing case studies and examples, that there are people who are actually using some of these things, and there are some relevant applications. And I wanted to create an environment to not only showcase things that are kind of new and emerging, but also talk about how real companies, real organizations have been using them. And he didn't think that was a crazy idea. And
no eye roll.
And so I kind of indirectly been volunteered to host the stage. And it evolved over the last couple months, where we found some interesting technologies that people have been promoting. The telepresence robot, Vega.
That's cool.
And,
that's geeky cool.
Yes, and its price point is so reasonable. It's $6,000 per unit,
wow.
Which for a new innovative technology, especially telepresence technology, is super cheap.
Yeah.
So that was a cool technology that I saw that I invited them to come and showcase the Virtusphere, or as I like to call it, the human hamster ball.
Yeah.
I was excited that they agreed to come,
Yeah.
and I love that so many people have signed up to jump in and literally jump in.
Right.
And
take it for a spin.
Right. Actually jump in and try it out. So that's been great. And then we've been kind of mixing other case studies and panels in with it. So
yeah, I just attended the panel that you just had with some really smart people that we know, and it's just fun to have those conversations and hear their ideas, and they're not always the same, right? They don't always agree, and that's what's cool. And I was talking with David this morning from the Guild, and that's what is great about this conference, is those conversations that we have with people, and how we kind of work things out together as a community and kind of settle in on solutions that work for your company or whatever. So
one of the things that I think I value most about the conferences are the more informal conversations where you can just say, hey, I saw this technology, or oh, I heard you were doing this, and how do you feel about this? Because even though I am actually friends with a lot of the other speakers and people who are, I use the term with air quotes, thought leaders, that we have relationships, and I maybe talk to them a lot more, but I don't necessarily hear what they're doing professionally, or we don't have a lot of conversations about here's what I'm doing, or here's what are you doing, and what lessons learned, or what things are you finding.
Right.
So the DevLearn is an opportunity really to start having those conversations and seeing what other people are actually have been doing throughout the year. So it's great, and I hope the last panel with my esteemed panel gave them a chance to have a more informal conversation about some of the new technologies that are out there. So
well, you got kind of rushed this stage afterwards, so that's a good sign when people come up afterwards and want to engage in continue to come.
So.
That's true. Groupies, learning groupies were ascending on them. So tell me a little bit about some of your work with the gaming.
Yeah, so actually, you probably have heard, I don't know, but Tandem Learning just was acquired by Yogo Games.
Congratulations, by the way. I did see that.
Yes, and although we've been doing a lot of gaming projects ourselves, that wasn't our exclusive focus as a company. We still do a lot of work in virtual world implementations and consulting engagements and even some traditional learning, even though I think people tend to think I'm the crazy emerging technology girl, which I am. But we had an opportunity earlier this year, and I had met Michael Ferguson, the head of Yogo, at a conference, and they were doing some really interesting work on social issue-based games. So games for health primarily at this point, and they have some great partnerships with Stanford and really doing some interesting things around using game design to change behavior, and which I think is fascinating and a large part of what drives my interest in gaming. So I had reached out to him, and they have a very game design developer background. Didn't have as much experience in the learning industry side. I was a teacher, and kind of, my background's in education and learning, and I kind of backed into the gaming side. And I think, talking a little bit about moving forward and how to expand gaming as a concept or a design strategy for learning was really interesting for both of us, and we saw some nice balance there between our skill sets. So Tandem Learning's not going away.
That's
it will
good.
Continue. Yeah, it will continue as a brand, a division of Yogo, and we'll continue to work with government agencies and companies, corporate clients, and we're doing some work with academia now and K-12 schools. So I kind of focus on that. How do you promote learning within organizations through games? And Yogo is very public-facing. So how can we create games that make the world a better place, which is great. So
yeah.
I'm excited about it. I think the combined skill set of our two companies will mean much bigger and better things for everyone. So that's exciting.
Yeah, that is a good partnership. You guys can do more, better, cooler things. Right?
And they're in Vancouver, so that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Probably some trips up there to visit.
Yeah,
and
nice.
Maybe they'll drag themselves down to Philadelphia.
All right, awesome. So what are you guys doing in the mobile space? Anything?
Most of what we're doing right now mobily is game-based applications, and specifically we're doing a lot of alternate reality games that use mobile devices to play the game. So just to, for anyone who's not familiar with alternate reality games, alternate reality games are storyline driven, and we usually incorporate several different technologies or not necessarily devices, but different software applications and social media tools to promote communication and gameplay through the storylines. So we've done a sales training alternate reality game that recreated a sales territory. We're currently working on 2 games. One is a customer service training game for an e-commerce site with Granger. And the other is a procurement alternate reality game for Department of Homeland Security. And we have a engine that we use called the Looking Glass engine that usually is the back-end database scoring portal for our games. And we are making all of our games mobile now so that people can play them in short little stints, go in, look for clues, gather information, answer scenarios. The whole point of our design for alternate reality games is not that someone sits down for an hour and a half and plays straight through. They're really designed for kind of quick hit scenarios over time. The learning theory telling us that repetitive exposure to content and that kind of over time piece is important for learning, and so that's how we're designing our games. And mobile really enables that type of design.
Yeah.
If you're standing in line at a bank and you want to look up something really quick in 5 minutes, then now we're designing games that allow you to do that. So that's been really fun to think through the different contexts that people can play in,
right?
And how mobile can actually allow us to, reach people at times when they normally wouldn't be able to be exposed to training because it just was too tied to their computer or to the laptop. So So that's been a lot of fun. We're
Yeah.
really thinking of creative ways of doing it. And the other thing that we get to do through alternate reality games is usually information and communication comes through several modalities, several mechanisms. So we can send text messages, we can send emails, which people can get on their phones. We can send voicemail messages and make phone calls. And people can call in to voice boxes to get information and clues and things for the game. So a lot of our gameplay is actually focused on smartphones and their capabilities, and it has expanded out, I think, a lot of people's vision, especially our clients' vision, of how gaming looks within an organization. So it's been fun.
Leveraging those, I mean, this tool wasn't around it hasn't been around that long, the smartphone, and there's just so much opportunity with what these devices have to offer.
I mean, we spend an awful lot of time looking at how people are already using their phones, and then creating our storylines for our games to complement what they're already doing. So if they normally would get an email from a customer with a request, then through our game storyline, customers email them requests.
Nice.
If they're getting voicemail messages, we'll use voicemail. So we're really looking at trying to create these mirror parallel realities and storylines so that as they're playing, the activities they're doing are realistic as possible. So
Excellent.
yeah, it's great.
Well, you're doing some great stuff, some exciting stuff, and congratulations again on the success of the growth of your organization, and looking forward to what you guys do as a team. And we'll definitely be following you online and
I'm
see
sure
what happens.
over the next few months there will be more news. Yoga's been doing some great things on their own. We've been doing and are in the process of completing some really big projects on the Tandem side. So I think once all the dust settles of everyone kind of doing all their announcements and finishing up projects, the next phase of us kind of merging our capabilities will be really exciting. I think one of the little things related to mobile that happened recently was we were working with a potential client, and they were asking about how mobilely enabled our games were, and I knew they were, but I called the head developer, Paul at Yoga, and I said, so they wanted to get some information about mobile capabilities, and he said, well, you know, there's 7 levels of mobile enabled games, and I was like, oh, really? And he said, yeah, and he rattled it off really quickly, and me being the design person, I caught like the first 2 words, and I was like, okay, so you can do mobile games.
Yeah, you answered my question. Thank you.
My question was, you know, how mobile were their games, and he went to a whole level. So I'm actually really excited about kind of learning more about the intricacies of how they've designed the social games.
Right.
Because I think, you know, when you're designing games for general public consumption, you have to think about your audience on a much broader scope and all the variations of how people might access the content in the games. And, you know, within organizations, it's usually a much more limited scope or much more limited set of, it's a more defined audience. And so I'm actually excited to learn more about the potential of ways that we can deliver games through different mobile levels, evidently. And because I think, you know, moving forward, the more options you can give to organizations, the more likely they are to see the benefit of how you know, the mobile devices can integrate with a lot of their training solutions. So
awesome. Looking forward to seeing what you guys do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Jeff.